Yes.
How you doing? How you doing?
You Mr. McCoy, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I'm on.
Mr. Singletary, are you able to hear us? Are you able to hear us, Mr. Singletary? I think you're muted still.
Yes, sir. I got you.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Jackie. Can you hear me? Jackie, can you hear me? Oh, they make. They hate it, Mackie, but I don't know if you can hear me.
He's muted. That way he's got his mic muted.
Yeah, I can hear you.
They can hear you now. Oh, sweet, I haven't answered that.
Right, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Mr. Grady.
Be here.
Girl.
Oh, is that Ronnie? Good, how are you?
Just seeing them. How I have to send in my text or something like that, exciting.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Ain't gonna find something if I know that, yeah. Nothing wrong with getting that explanation. Communication is one thing. We have most of our problems, but that's it. All right. At this time, I'd like to call the Monday, December the 11th, 2023, Blaine County Regular Board Meeting to order. Mr. McCoy will do our invocation, and then after that, the students from Elizabethtown Primary will lead us in our pledge of allegiance.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Dear Heavenly Father, it's once again, Lord, we find ourselves looking to the hills from which cometh our help. Realizing, Lord, that all of our help comes from thee. And Lord, we would be remiss this evening, Lord, if we didn't acknowledge just how good you've been to each and every one of us. But tonight, Lord, we are asking for something very special. We ask that you bless the children of Bladen County. Bless them in a way that you see fit. Keep your loving arms around them, guide them, and nourish them, Lord. And Lord, in the end, I want to hear you say, well done, my good and faithful servant. We will be forever grateful and give your name the praise. This is our prayer. Amen.
Here, Bentley board members, tonight we have Scarlett Emma Grace Bryson, Ayla McSwain, Kamar Monroe, and Zyree Monroe from Elizabethtown Primary to lead us in our pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, baby. Good to see y'all. Awesome. Board members, y'all would please stand. So get a picture. Take a group picture. Let's get these students.
At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion that we stop tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve. Tonight's agenda.
It's been moved, properly seconded that we approve the tonight's agenda. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got a question. Dr. Atkinson, we got somebody here that can talk about these summer testing plans.
Mr. McCarthy, Ken.
Mr. McCarthy. figured. Before we approve these testing plans here, I'd like to know what's new and improved and how we're gonna improve and everything.
Well, the main difference that we have right now with is the high school level. The way the testing runs for the high school level. We're not gonna be able to use those scores from the information that I'm seeing from memos that we've gotten. We're not gonna be able to use those scores like we have in the past, as far as the student comes back and takes the test using that score to replace the score that they had taken. So that's the big difference with what we have this year. The shortened time, one of the plans we looked at was allowing the students to come in on the days that we have the work days for the teachers. This way we have all the teachers there. We have more opportunities for remediation with the students, with the teachers who actually talk to them. Because that would be beneficial.
What's the reason why we can't use the scores? What's the issue?
It was a memo that came out from the state there, because there's no, there's nothing in the state policy that allows for retesting of students. As far as,
You had that memo with you?
it's back in my office, I can show you a copy of it.
I think the board would be interested in seeing that. There's nothing that talks about retesting to replace the better score with the bad score with the better score.
You can't change a grade at the high school level, but you can use the grades at the elementary level.
Okay.
But at the high school level, you cannot use that grade. It can go in to help out with toward proficiency, if I'm not mistaken. But as far as the way high school runs, that end of course grade counts as 20% of the student's final grade. And they can't replace that 20%. So the problem that you run into is there's very little incentive for the student to come back and take the test, because it's not going to benefit them, which is benefit the school.
And so putting them in a class with the teacher who taught them is supposed to help that?
Well, that's two different things. The remediation at the middle and elementary levels would be with those teachers who know the students and have worked with the students throughout the course of the year. They can come back, they can do that remediation, they can take the test, and that test can go back in. As far as improving that grade will go back in and improve. It'll count in their record. But as far as the school, it'll help the school as well. So it does both. But at the high school level, the big thing of the end of course test score is part of the student's grade, actually. It counts as 20% of their grade. So you can't go back, like if I go back as a student who's taking English 2, I took the test the first time, I was not proficient in it. Okay, so that score was already factored into my grade. If I were to come back and try and take the test again, that score that I made the first time isn't going to change my grade as far as the course goes. So if I made a 50 on that test, that's 20% of my final grade. Well, at the end of the year, if I come back and take it a second time, that 50 is still going to stay there. So there's not an incentive for the student to come back as a high school student to take the test, because it's not going to affect their grade. Does it make sense?
Yeah. So what's the fix for that?
That's
State board policy.
State board policy.
Gotcha. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
So we gotta get out there and get them up past top of that 50 to nothing.
Yeah, and one thing about this, if I can do a clarification too, you have two plans, and the reason why is give the district the option to do those work days or the week after. And we just have to get initial submission into Raleigh. It could be amended at, I think, at any time up to a certain point. But so many days before testing. So if we were able to find out additional information or we decide to modify that, we could bring it back to you all, and do an amendment. That's just one, that's why I want to explain you have two. That's why the two options there, we have the week of work days, versus the week after work days. So I don't know, that was something that was discussed. So we're gonna have both options available. So we have flexibility.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
I have one other question. Pertaining to the need-based capital funding. Are we looking at having any additional change orders to this thing?
I mean, you know, if there's something comes up in the demolition or final thing, they bill the state and as things are expended. That's all this is. It's just the formality to get the county pays the bill. They ask for reimbursement, but it requires our board and the county commissioners to approve that reimbursement request. So we're claiming what's already approved. So I'm not sure how much, Mr. Harrison knows how much to date they
Because I look,
claim. So I know they got demolition call.
Looking at it,
The last.
Any more discussion? Not all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed likewise. No opposition, motion carries. The agenda for tonight has been approved. Number 5, approval of the consent agenda. Entertain a motion for that. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and proper second that we approve the tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
I was one step ahead, but.
We ordered that.
Yeah,
That's the word.
that's okay.
I'm sorry, y'all.
Since we've already done the discussion. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed likewise. There's none, motion carries, so approval of because the consent agenda has been approved. And number 6, board organizations. 6.01, election board chair, Dr. Axel, and that's over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Benton, board members. December is board organization month. So at this time, we with 6.01, if the election of board chair at this time, I would like to open the floor for nominations for board chair.
I nominate Gary Rhoda as board chair.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Tim Bennett.
Any other nominations?
Mr. Bennett.
Any other nominations? Have a motion that nominations cease. Do I have a motion that nominations cease?
Can I do it?
So move in. Second,
Second.
all those in favor of nominations closing, say aye. All opposed? All right, we have 2 nominations for board chair. All those in favor, and I think we need to do this by raised hand so we can see that. Folks online, we'll have to call you individually for your vote, okay? All those in favor of Mr. Gary Rhoda as the board chair, please signify by the raised hand. Folks online. All those in favor of Mr. Tim Benton as board chair, please don't by the raised hand. About 5. Mr. McCoy, what's your vote? Mr. McCoy? Mr. McCoy? Mr. McCoy, so by a vote of 5-2, and Mr. McCoy unable to vote, Mr. Tim Benton will be board chair for the upcoming year. At this time, we'd like to open the floor under 6.02, the election of board vice chair. I'd like to open the floor for nominations for board vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Glenn McCoy for us.
Second.
Any additional nominations for board vice chair?
Yeah. I'd like to nominate Dennis.
Any additional nominations for board vice chair? No, do we have a motion that nominations cease? Motion nominations cease. We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor of nominations cease, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And there's none. So we'll do in the same like manner by the raised hand. Folks online, if I can't see you, I'll need to have an audible vote. Those in favor of Mr. Glenn McCoy serving as board vice chair, please let it know by the raised hand. And Mr. McCoy, a vote for you. All those in favor of Mr. Dennis Edwards as board vice chair, let me know by the raised hand.
Lone Ranger.
I appreciate it.
By majority vote, Mr. Glenn McCoy will be the board vice chair for the upcoming year. And Chairman Benton, that will include the board organization part of our agenda for this evening.
Okay, we've got any spotlights and recognitions?
Yes, sir, we do have one. At this time, we'd like to call up Mr. Austin Hunt from West Bladen High School, as well as his principal and his art teacher, Dr. Hester, principal, and Ms. McMillan as his art teacher. And Ms. McMillan, can you explain to the board and our guests, Mr. Hunt and the great recognition that he has received, and Ms. McMillan is actually holding a print of this artwork. Ms. McMillan, can you share with our folks tonight about his painting?
Well, it's actually a drawing. He worked very hard on it. He was recognized, and he was actually voted by teachers from the North Carolina Association of the art educators during this year's conference. So his artwork was selected to be displayed in the legislative building for 1 year. So we're looking forward to their contact for him to be recognized formally in June.
Great job.
Stand. Congratulations. All. Congratulations. Getting the board members, that concludes the spotlights and recognitions for this evening.
There any citizen participation?
No, sir.
We'll move on to number 9. Information items, 9.01 Tar Heel School construction update, Mr. Burris.
How you doing?
Yeah, Chairman, members of the board. Sent to you today the updated monthly report for Tar Heel. Tomorrow is the substantial completion date for that school. It reached its substantial completion date on time. The inspections department has completed their inspections for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. They're addressing punch list items that are at the school now. Address that, also addressing the architectural punch list the architect has created. And staff have been at the school for the past couple days. And identified items that need to be addressed in the furniture selection and in layout and orientation of some of the classes and spaces. They've walked through the school in each individual room. And some things that are working and some things that may not be or need to be improved for them. And staff is considering that and have to move forward with that. So the school has done very well. The construction team has done very well with their process. The movers have delivered the boxes to the teachers at both of the schools. The movers arrive tomorrow morning to start moving items from the media centers at both of the schools into the new media centers. And then following that, we'll start moving the teachers' materials. Along with maintenance staff here at the school system, items that are in the existing schools that are being salvaged are being taken apart and moved over to Piney Grove School per the board's action last month for future auctions and future considerations. The facilities are working properly. We do have one item to continue to address is the graphics package within some of the HVAC controls, just so that you can see and monitor the equipment away from the site. But it is functioning fine and doing well. Overall, our contingencies are still under budget. Our work that we need to be completed with the site still needs to be addressed. And so you know the switch over that'll occur once we move the students out of the students are gone. Once we move the teachers' materials out of the building, we'll start doing an asbestos abatement of the existing building. And then the existing building will be starting demolished in January, 1st of January. And then we'll move on. Fire tank has been delivered. It's been set. Fire pump has been delivered and set up. It's being plumbed and finished as we speak. So that's going well. And the contractor's on target with their budget and with the amount requested in as your previous item on the agenda and move forward in the state for payment. We don't have any additional change orders with the architect. We have added some security shading into the glass windows that are there, so in case of emergency, shades can drop. And isolate students from the hallways. Contractors met their original completion dates and targets that they had for the project. The material deliveries that we had on a couple of items. They've addressed those. We do not have any weather delays to impact the schedule. And following a list of activities that we completed this month and those that we have in the next 30 days and continuing the punch list and fixing that. IT and security cameras being finished, those installations, making sure that all the networks are up and running before students return. The auxiliary gym is still getting wall pads in its location. We got final cleaning to go through one more time with that. And again, inspections completed their tasks. So, we want to thank you for the board's actions in approving the school and moving forward and giving support for the project throughout its course. And again, say congratulations to all of you for having a wonderful new school.
Thank you. It's certainly, I'm not an architect, but it's a beautiful structure and it will be a great asset to our students and our school system. Maybe we can get some more. Not too long.
Now, I want to touch base on one thing with you. I mean, I agree with him. It's very beautiful. My biggest thing is, I mean, seating capacity in that gym. Is there any way we could get some different type of bleachers, maybe with a different pitch or something? That at least one side of the court, maybe they would come a little closer in. I think that's gonna be the biggest thing is capacity of people you can put in the gym.
They can be added to because they take a fair amount of effort to extend because you're having to extend from the back row out. As you do extend, you are limiting the sidelines from people people playing basketball and going into either the,
Do you know right offhand how many feet we have right now?
I don't know off the top of my head exactly how many feet, I think they've got 6 to 8 feet. It's a minimum.
I mean, I know it's something we'll have to look at in the future, but I would love to have more seating. I mean, I think everybody would agree with.
What does it seat? Around close to 400?
It's close to 450, 450.
And I'm sure, I mean, you would have to do a lot of measuring and probably look at the guidelines from the state of how much room you gotta have from, I'd say, the outside lines and stuff.
There's, the design that's there is fitting in the maximum amount of seats for that distance that the state had recommended, or state recommends. And was designed and run through the state Department of Public Instruction and approved for that. Anything bigger, probably should have considered at the beginning of the design as a request in the programming. That's
We would think,
yeah.
yeah,
Beyond that,
yeah.
we can look at it or look at temporary seating along the sides for other areas with pulled out chairs and things like that, just to address additional capacity. Because you do have a large number of folding chairs available, and they can be added as needed for special events or those kind of things. And if it is, aside from being one of the nice facilities that you have within the gym and want to be used, I know by the community a lot. We'll have to adapt to what demands are.
I mean, I would think that you close a school, and you build a school to compensate for the school that you're tearing down or no longer utilizing, but yet you don't meet the capacity for the parents and students of the two to utilize them. By the time you get X number of people in there that have just come to see the event and you accommodate the students and the parents that are currently attending the school, you don't have no space. Beautiful gym, state of the art, but it ain't big enough. And it should have been done in the planning process. You can't build it and now tear it down and make it bigger. Or expand it. Where you gonna expand it to? Can't, exactly. Thank you.
Well, I'd say in all fairness to us, we didn't know how many it was gonna seat when they started building it. Maybe we should have asked more questions, but sometimes you don't know enough about what's going on to ask a question about it.
And again, you've had issues on your budget.
Is there in fact a seating shortage? Is it actually inadequate?
I don't know what the maximum attendance has been at one of your existing facilities or your existing functions at that, particularly for the middle school level. Whether you've used that facility as a high school gym or recreational gym at other times, which you probably have, and whether or not there's additional, was it sufficient to address the capacity that the original gym and the original school was planned for a different time and a different size.
I mean, at this point in time, building a facility, you always want to look for expansion. I mean, community growing, things of that sort. Should have been bigger. It's just my opinion.
Any more comments on Tar Heel School construction update? Okay. Down 9.02, the field house and storage building plan.
At our last board meeting, we had discussions regarding the field house and did a tour of the facility. Some of the questions that arose from that was whether or not we could expand the facility and how we could expand it. And discussions with the building inspector, plumbing inspector particularly, if we add any additional fixtures or units or drains or other plumbing fixtures to those facilities, we will have to redo the septic system. cannot expand anything beyond what it has right now. For the existing building itself, you can expand the facility on either ends that you want to. Again, you're gonna have to go through the process of getting a building permit and doing the modifications that you need to address for that. But those facilities expanded would be for storage and or something that does not require plumbing or water going to it. Otherwise, you'll kick in the requirement that the septic system be redone.
In talking to Adam Knowles, Adam said that, and Mr. Burris is correct, as long as we go back and update the fixtures and we don't replace or don't add on any fixtures, all he needs is a $75 permit to go out where he can see where the septic tank is and where the lines run, and then he can flag it off, and then we can extend out 15 or 20 feet and build onto it at that point. So we don't have to do anything extra unless we're going to add more fixtures to the process.
My question will be in the concession stand part. Is there a sink in it? The current one?
Currently is, I believe, a 2 or 3 compartment sink in there.
Could we just move that over? I mean, that would be a question that I would want to know, like, put the concession in the center and extend the building over, make it maybe, if you could go 15, 20 foot and have storage on each side of the concession stand and keep it centered.
The concession stand itself, if you want to repurpose that space,
right,
and move that, as long as the fixture count remains the same, you'll be fine to include it in the new building.
Right. That's what I wanted to know.
And so, and the question comes about, if you want us to proceed with that as part of the current construction contract or a separate contract, we need to have direction soon, very, very soon, about which way to go and how large to make it. So if you want to give any direction of that tonight, we can go ahead and incorporate some of those items and have the existing contractor be able to address those between the January and April timeframe. If not, we're going to miss the opportunity of their supervision being available on site to address that. And you'll have to bid out that project, design it and bid it out a separate bid package. But that may be what you may do just for time.
I think we need to go ahead and get Adam on board so he can get out and show us where everything's existing, and then we need to go ahead and make some moves while we got folks on the site.
You're fine to expand to the, if you're facing the concession stand, you're fine to expand to the back side, to the front side, and to the left side. But and that'd be relocating then the toilets that are on the left side to the right. That expansion on the right-hand side is limited by the tank and its location, and then the field in its location. So expansion only on the right-hand side needs to be the front. It can't be further to the right.
Are you saying that from facing the building?
Facing the building. I'm standing in front of the concession.
That was the building.
That was the building. I can move that bathroom to that side, but I need to come out this way with it. And if I want to do any expansions to the building, I can do it either on the back or the front. And if you wanted to relocate the concession stand, then that relocating the sink can happen, and your plumbing can happen. You're just going to kick in a larger contract.
I definitely.
The options.
I mean, I agree with Mackie. We need to find out where we can move it and see how many feet we could go in each direction.
My recommendation then would be to hire an architect to come in, and again, or an engineer to come in and do the design that you want to have of the facility, and move forward with that and under a separate GC contract.
I'm just a question, if it's under a separate contract, I don't know that we can use needs-based capital funding. It had to be a separate.
Yeah, you're right.
You couldn't use this money because it'd be a separate contractor. Because when the award was made, the needs-based, we can go outside of the general contractors in the project. So if you did it, they would have to do it. But that's why you said at the time would be,
So I'm thinking if there was if you see where the lines are potentially and have some pricing for the board to consider, maybe all three options the other two that we had plus this. And
The main things that you have a renovation of the existing building. That's the lowest option that you have right now. The next option would be an expansion of that building. The question of how much of a storage area you want to add as an expansion of that facility. And if you want to relocate the bathroom as a part of it. Third option would be utilizing the existing building as it is, repurposing the concession stand into storage space, and then looking at expanding to the front side of that building with a new concessions area with the same number of fixtures in it as before, and any other space that you may want in that area.
I would more be in the lines of wanting to expand it and leave the bathrooms where they're at.
Yeah.
And just, upgrade the fixtures and all that. Upgrade everything and see where you could expand it. If anything would be moved, I don't know if you would have to move the concession part around. And I think that would probably be more feasible.
We can make some sketches for you to look at. And again, just rough sketches to get you ideas of that. If you leave those facilities the way they are, storage can be added on either end of that, either side of the concession stand building. Put the two buildings, and then you could have your covered canopy over the concession, the existing concession area.
And I'm fine doing a Zoom meeting or anything like that to, get the ball rolling on that if possible. Our next
What
meeting.
was the number that we were considering? It was 18,000?
Now, for the original whole new building was a lot more than that, 800,000.
No, this concession stuff.
For the renovation part?
Yeah.
Renovation part was about 100,000 total if we had to do anything with the subject, but we don't. So it'd be less than that, it'd probably in the $30,000 to $50,000 range to finish everything.
And somehow, something like 18 to 20,000 we talked about in the last meeting.
18 to 20,000 was the storage building. It still remains across the street. Everything else in the lot has been moved now. That building is still there and available if you want. It was a total to get it relocated and permitted about 25,000.
Yeah.
I guess if we could cost out all of the or potential costs and then the board take action on the 8th. And
as a budget, you can do your renovations, your renovations and the storage building about 50,000. We'll look at your expansion to the facility, the existing facilities. You can look at about $250 to $300 a square foot, whatever you want to add to it. And that's just a basic block building that you're adding to it.
And
that's really high for just the storage space.
So by the time you go through all the process that you're going to go through, that's where it'll generally run to. You build a wood frame, slab in a wood frame building and be done with it too. So, that's really all you need.
More questions or comments?
We could have some sketches.
Well, sketches for you to have, if you want to arrange a Zoom meeting or a call, we can get moving forward with it as soon as we can. And remain under the existing contract with the general contractor to address it.
Since the COVID restriction, we cannot have a full virtual board meeting. Members can be individually, but we cannot have a full meeting. They went the first day, yeah, so we have to do. Our next regular scheduled meeting is January the 8th. I don't know if that's time to get everything for the holidays, but the decision can be made then and then pick up whatever it is.
We can have it. We just need to have a decision generated and which way we want to go.
So have all the options, estimated price sketches, everything for you all.
Can we guarantee we have all that? Because, like with other things in the past, we haven't always gotten prices and stuff because Not because of you, but just because the contractors weren't able to be reached or.
It won't be a bid price. I'll give you a budget for it.
Okay.
It won't be bid until you finalize the design and we put it out or give it to the contractor. Because he won't have time to go through all of it with this subcontractor.
A lot of them part of it. Okay.
Dr. Atkinson, what's the process of getting Adam out there so he can go ahead and get the lines figured out and where the tank is? Can we initiate that, or does Mr. Burris need to initiate that?
I can call him in the morning.
Thank you, sir.
He was willing to come out anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Thank you. Appreciate it. Move on to 9.03, traffic concerns at East Bladen High School. Dr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Chairman Benton and board members. This past Wednesday, few of us met out at East Bladen to see the morning traffic as well as the afternoon traffic on site during both periods. Actually, law enforcement officials were there. I think in the morning we had the sheriff's department and highway patrol. Afternoon was highway patrol. We had Mr. Kenneth Clark, who's a district engineer for the North Carolina Department of Transportation. That was also present. During both times, he did vehicle counts kind of monitored. And I think one of the common things that we saw that was, in fact, saw an almost accident at the dismissal is blind spots created by the turning lane. And that is obviously when you get to the school, just past the school zone, you do have a right turn lane that branches off. You could turn first into the first entrance, and then there's one down second. What was especially happened in the afternoon was as parents were coming in, they were entering the second entrance, which is the one furthest on 87 toward East Arcadia. And what would happen is cars would actually line up, they would be out into that turn lane. So whenever you approach the stop sign coming out of the parking area, it was difficult to see because you had cars that were stopped in the turning lane to get in.
So it presented a blind spot.
Right. So, early on that particular time, you had a car that in fact, I was on this end, and I said they pulled out, and not being able to see, you got oncoming traffic still going down 87. So you about had a T-bone there. Fortunately, both of them saw each other, stopped. At that point, the trooper that was at the end of the school zone came down, directed traffic, got everybody out. So he stopped all traffic on 87, got everybody out of the school. But Mr. Clark had kind of examined what potential, fix could, get us going now. So look at that. Also, there's multiple kind of things you probably could consider. But in doing the counts, he felt confident if we could get the traffic out of the turn lane, that would fix a lot of the concerns that would be there. So in doing vehicle counts and looking at the available parking area that you have, and one thing that was suggested was to transition to a single drive for entry and then a single drive for exit. And so what would happen is you see on the maps, you've got them in board docs as well. And this is, of course, there'll be maybe some other modifications in terms of student parking area. I'll talk about in a moment. So what would happen and what he's proposing is that traffic would enter into the first exit. That means nobody coming into the building. There would be no queue in that turn lane at all for the beginning of the day and the ending of the day. In fact, the suggestion was potentially maybe working with DOT to have removable barriers to block that turn lane totally, have signage to direct traffic into the first. And then what would happen is your faculty and staff lot is where that first entrance would be. And so what would have to take place in terms of our parking area to create that drive, first initially was looking up close toward the building, but because you've got the pedestrian traffic coming off the buses, thought that might not be the greatest way to go. So if you'll see on the map,
when you enter from 87, the first entrance, you would turn to the immediate left. And what would be needed is that area that's between the bus parking lot and the roadway that's outside the student lot will be to create a passage through so that traffic would go straight at that point and continue that queue. So rather than coming in the second entrance, which they've been doing, which you see, if you came in the second entrance, you really don't have as much room to create that circle. Whereas by coming in on the entrance closest to Elizabethtown, you're able to create a much larger loop so that traffic that is in queue would be inside the school campus and not in the turn lane. We ask other questions in terms of speed limit for school zones, but then you got to think about enforcement as well. Originally when we had checked on something previously, we were told 10 miles an hour was usually the max they would reduce to a school zone. Neighboring counties, we've been out and seen that's not necessarily the case. But he thought that, in his experience as a DOT engineer, this would probably be the quickest solution. One additional thing would be to potentially do another exit on the other end of campus, but that would be a little more extensive. That might be something down the road that might be one to be considered. So the only cost that would really be in this would be to create that passageway in those lots, of course, in signage, and then, in temporary barricades. One would be obviously to put, because you want the flexibility if you're going to have a large event and someone's doing traffic control, you could open that up and go back to a multi-entrance, but during a regular school day, you would not have that. So if you'll notice on the red lines that are present in that second entrance furthest, you'll see that the red dots is to close off the entrance on the second side, as well as do it again further up so no one breaks that loop. So obviously that would be some kind of movable barrier, whether that's barrels or if it's the plastic type of kind of guardrail material, whatever that might be. And so basically you create this one in, one out loop. So we've asked Mr. Lennon is working to get us some prices on what it would take to do that little section there. We're hopeful that it would not be astronomical to do that because you're only looking at a small area that we have to. And I'm not, Mr. Lennon, I'm thinking that there is curbing there, so that curbing would have to be removed so they could actually create that short section of pavement to make that loop. What the school has already started doing is kind of holding back buses a few extra minutes so that traffic could get down. But buses could still route out the other, or they could wait and loop on. So they had that option as well. So if I believe in the essence of safety, we had another accident Monday, which kind of, and we had someone airlifted. There was no students involved in that, but we did obviously have folks that had some severe injuries. There have been several accidents over the last year or two in that area. And so we believe really the turn lane blind spot really is the culprit really in those accidents. Now, obviously still, there's always potential for driver error, failure to yield, but you've taken away, we all put, I'm like, there's no way you can see, because even if you go out just a little bit to see, you're already in that lane of someone coming down 87. So, if this is, a figure that I can do, that's authorized by the board, then I would go ahead and move forward once we got the pricing to have this taken care of. Obviously, we'd like to try to do it during the break so that whenever we come back in second semester, but again, that's based on availability of folks who do pay. So Mr. Lynn was getting some pricing for us on that now. The question also came up about West Bladen, and obviously same design parking lot. Talked Mr. Clark with the DOT as well about that. What West Bladen currently has now is same kind of entrances, but and Dr. Hester could even clarify this too. On your student lot going out, it's a right turn only, so that traffic can exit right. So you're not, you don't have this queue that's waiting there. Plus you have Center Road. So if you're wanting to go back to Elizabethtown, you Center Road, take a left to go back out to 41, or take a right on Center Road, come back out to 41 on the Tar Heel side over there. But I think if we started seeing issues in the backup, I could see a similar thing, maybe if we need to do that there. But they have not had the concerns or accidents in that area. Primarily too, is you're coming off the roundabout, so you haven't gotten a large speed in most cases at that point to West Bladen. Plus, as you're approaching from Bladenburg toward West Bladen, folks are, in most cases, are slowing down because the roundabout is coming. So I think the biggest need right now is to definitely look at this. We want to provide this for information. If cost is above an amount that I can approve, we'd come back to you all with that. But we're hopeful it's not going to be, and it's something we can go ahead and have taken care of. And again, best case scenario would be that we get it and have it done and in place for the second semester when folks return for the holidays.
On the parent drop off and pickup to the left there, that pickup line starts backing up before the buses are ready to go.
Well, and we talked about that, and what Ms. Baldwin had been doing even this week is holding the buses a little bit, at that time we're trying to get the car. It was like a 5 to 7 minute difference. And what could, potentially happen here, even with buses, there is an option, but someone would have to just kind of would man that. But when he did the traffic count, he believed we'd be well up in the parking lot based on what was in the turn lane. Buses could be held. We could also potentially adjust and change their pattern of parking, and they could look back out and have someone, assist them to get out. Because your turn lane, it starts at this corner, but it doesn't become full until you pass that part of the exit. So that's one option. Or just holding a few moments, and if that loops out, they just loop straight on out. Now I will tell you the law enforcement presence on dismissal with what the state trooper did was he parked his car in the lane of 87 going toward East Arcadia. He exited the car. Obviously his car was blocking that lane, so folks were behind him. They could see him. He stopped traffic coming from toward East Arcadia to the school, and then basically let all the students out, parents that were in the loop out. I mean, literally, it was a very, very quick exit in that. But and they shared this. Those resources cannot guarantee they're going to be available every day at dismissal. I think he shared with us that there was 2 folks assigned to Bladen County at that particular time, and they had committed and tried to schedule that, but if there had been an accident in Bladen County somewhere or whatever, he couldn't be there because they would be dispatched to that. So, I mean, really, based on the engineer's report, I think that this would definitely get that turn lane cleared. So we don't have that blind spot that's there. And definitely I think that would be helpful, but happy to entertain additional questions or things that want me to reach back out to the engineer on, but again, I wouldn't think this would be a major cost based on just you're not looking at a lot of paving that's going to have to take place there.
I have a question. Instead of the highway patrol, can the school resource officer handle that traffic?
That is something that we also asked about as well. And so that was part of the discussion we're right there on Wednesday. We didn't at that time, get a commitment either way, but I mean, that's something we discussed because both East and West Bladen now have 2 officers assigned to them.
Well, did I see something written where Sheriff McVicker was involved in this entire process?
He was there for the beginning, the initial meeting in the morning. He wasn't able to make it back for the afternoon. Right. So, but he was present when we were doing entry to the building. The biggest backup, I think, and again, it happens both times. But a lot of folks get there early on dismissal and are kind of just waiting. What happened a lot of times, I think, with the backup is folks are getting there pushed toward the last minute, as tardy bell's fixing to ring, and because that accident was around 8 o'clock or so. So you had But there again, still got a backup in both. So he did see that at the beginning, and obviously want to follow up with his office as well, regarding potential traffic control, as well as this. I'm not sure, he was not on the, Mr. Clark sent this to me. I'm not sure if he, shared that. Because that morning we had Sheriff McVicker and Major Cotton,
Captain Payne.
Captain Pate with the Highway Patrol. Or first sergeant, I'm not sure what his rank is. He's the
First sergeant.
first sergeant, Highway Patrol.
Okay.
And then we had Mr. Clark from DOT. Myself, Ms. Brown, Principal, AP, Ms. Johnson was also there as well. So we had several folks that were present. So I mean, I think it's worth circling back. I mean, even with this change, I think there's still a need. I mean, anything that can expedite getting folks off the campus, whether it be for school day, after school events like ball games and things, sometimes that becomes difficult. But I mean, that'd be something we definitely will circle back with him. But we did have an initial discussion that morning about potential traffic control. But I think First Sergeant Pate said that they had scheduled out at least through this Friday, provided nothing happens, for Highway Patrol to also support, and kind of more so to patrolling that school zone to see if we could, get some help there on that. But it's probably of all of our schools, as far as the school zone itself. Now we've had issues in Dublin, Clarkton, Tar Heel, sometimes with speeding there. But I would say probably East Bladen, as much open road as it is, a lot of times folks are really rolling through there. I mean, you're thinking if folks, the 4-lane now is at 60. Some folks don't let up off of that and are still, so I would say probably speed wise, those folks are traveling fastest in that East Bladen school zone of all of them. Now, one thing if I can kind of share this as far as school zones, we did ask the question about, the speed. Could there be a reduction in that? And if so, kind of what would that be? They had to get back to us on that. I said initial question we had probably a couple of years ago when it was pertaining to Clarkson was we were told 10 mile an hour would be the difference. We also asked about additional flashing lights on both sides of the road. But we were informed that the school district had to pay for any of the lights that would be placed. It would not be a DOT cost. I did not know that, but.
What about them little rumble strip things?
I'm sorry?
About them little rumble strips they put in before, you know what I'm saying? Before.
To slow down. Yeah, I mean, that could be another possible solution. Because, you had that as you're approaching like Highway 87 and Highway 11, you've got that there, plus you've got additional lights there as well. But, so that's, and then you, of course, obviously, thinking about, there's now they have solar on those lights. So, I mean, that was discussion about could you do both sides. But I think the immediate thing is this traffic control and changing the pattern, especially, and then maybe we can circle back on some of the other things that we try to do. But
so what was the answer to the SROs being involved in this? Was it not a response or?
Ms. Brown, I don't think we actually got an actual answer at that point. It was just some discussion. We just,
They're out there some mornings, but not every morning.
Yeah. Because I've been by there and we've had one out at the Worcestertown side with lights on, but like I said, I think we need to go do some follow-up on that and see. And again, I'm not sure if Mr. Clark has shared it with him or not, so I want to definitely follow, make sure that you receive this, the drawing, and then circle back to traffic.
Is there a particular time the SROs are supposed to be there?
Contract says 7:30 to 4 o'clock.
And that's when you start getting, because school buildings open about 7:30.
Yes, when the students come.
Is there what's the slow down speed out there now? Is it 45 or 35?
45.
Mm-hmm. And I would push back on the state about the flashing lights and that type of thing. I mean, we all, we're sponsored by the state. We work by the state. I'm not sure why it'd be if it's a DOT issue out there and we're trying to help resolve it, why they couldn't help us out. So I might push back on that a little bit.
And that's something we could,
At the time being, I think that the SROs need to be on that exit. We did it when I was the SRO for West Clayton, did we not, Ms. Esther? And we didn't have any problems. I don't understand, just the lights alone will slow that traffic down because they see the lights coming in both directions. They know that there's something ahead they need to slow down for. And that will slow the traffic down. That alone would give you a better approach to it, but they need to be out there.
and I know, like I said,
They need to be
and Ms. Brown and I have been down.
looking at this. They need to be one on each section. And it's because if the staff is out in the parking lot like normally with their radios, they can handle what's in the parking lot. If there's any issues going on, because they're gonna address them anyway. But it's our role in each corner. That's the way we did it, and it worked fine. But you gotta kind of, twist it, Jason. You gotta make them, show them the importance of it. That we got kids out there that's being put in danger.
Yeah. And again, we'll share it, follow up on it. And, one thing that, will be a discussion, I think, for the board as we get to the opportunity for contract renewal, because we do have a yearly contract, would be to specify those things of expectations in the contract from the school system. Right now, it's just kind of, I think, general, and sometimes, I think that would be important to have, and then it becomes a binding part of
Exactly.
what we have. And so I think that's something that needs to be kind of spelled, because it's more, if I recall, more general in nature, but things like, traffic control for school entry, school dismissal, all those things. We know we've got the work day defined in there. But I think if we can put some specifics, because that may come back before the board again, this current contract is through June 30th, but I think some of those things would be necessary to say, these are things that we need as it relates to us as a school system, with the traffic and expectations for, in terms of, and during the day, we're out walking the campus, or we're, checking all that stuff, things that we would want to make sure that we just agreed upon. Not about,
It made me think about the school in Acme-Deco. Kind of the same situation, because they're out there on the major highway, 74, 76, but they fall right in the middle of that zone. Those officers out there all the time when that school buses are coming out. They're making sure that, they're seen, and they get those buses out of there, and they get those cars out of there, and then let that traffic resume. That's their job. Period. I don't.
And we, obviously there's some, questions from time, and, we have the contract with them, but the deputies themselves report to the sheriff. So that's something we'll have to kind of, just have a discussion about, things there with that. But Brown and I will circle back on, did he get this information, discuss the traffic control again, and we can report back to you all on that in our next meeting. Once we get numbers on this as well, and a timeline on when it can be done, I'll share that with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Atkinson. Okay, we'll move on to number 10, action items. Dr. Atkinson, you're tonight, that's on 10.01.
Thank you, Chairman Benton, board members. Last month, you all voted to table the approval of the school improvement plan. You asked for the principal and the school improvement chair to be present. Tonight, we do have Ms. Spencer and Ms. Wooten that's present with us. And so I'd like to ask them to come forward at this time and see if there's any questions that the board would have for Ms. Spencer or Ms. Wooten.
Famous for a reason. I wasn't here, so.
Any questions, comments?
Give me a refresher. Why was that tabled?
Well, they, and kind of gets backstory, I should be, I apologize, but, you know, when we did the original set of school group plans, we held off on Town Middle because they did have additional requirements at the CSI school. So last month would have been, I think we did everyone, all the other schools in October. So we brought Elizabethtown Middle in November at that meeting for approval. And that was, you know, of course, there was some additional guidance they had to receive from the state on strategies and things that had to be in there for what's considered a CSI school. And I can just kind of elaborate a little on this. They came and did a meeting with Ms. Spencer and the team there. And there were some things that the state had not been doing that should have been a part of the CSI process. In fact, they admitted that to the team. There's a gentleman that was present, I think the new person over that division, but kind of outlined some things that they would do as far as support from the state for the school. But there was, you know, with a CSI school, there's certain strategies that have to be a part of the school improvement team. The plan, excuse me, school improvement plan. So they do have those required 12 indicators that are there. The state actually made a change in one for all schools.
What ought to do?
I would have to get that pulled up for you all, but that's that's default into that system. Let me see if I can get in here. Y'all have something on that with them in front of you. You need to try to sign it. Thank you, Charlie. All right, so the state has this set, and I'll read these to you all. And actually, the first one is the one they modified. So A 1.07, all teachers employ effective classroom management and reinforce classroom rules and procedures by positively teaching them. Second one is A 2.04, instructional teams develop standards, align units of instruction for each subject and grade level. The next one is A 4.01. The school implements a tiered instructional system that allows teachers to deliver evidence-based instruction aligned to the individual needs of students across all tiers.
Excuse me, Jim.
Yes, sir.
What is evidence-based instruction?
So that would be any research-based strategies. So for example, if
The reason I asked Jason, where I came from, evidence-based means that there's evidence that this works.
yes, sir, that's it. That's what it gets. It's been researched. They know that if it's a set of 10 strategies, we've proven through research that these are effective with kids based on, you know, data or anything like that. And for those that may not be quantitative data, maybe something qualitative. So,
Well, what is it that we believe that works, Jason? I mean,
well, one of the biggest things we have had as far as district is what's considered high probability instructional strategies. Those that get the yield. So making sure that you've got clear learning targets so that teacher and so students first of all know what it is they're supposed to learn. What's the expectation for this lesson? So I know what that learning target is. It may be particular evidence-based strategies, like for example, our K-5 staff just completed the LETTERS program. So those are evidence-based literacy strategies that could be used. It could be looking at small group or project or problem-based instruction. Things like that would be considered, high yield, problem-based, project-based, hands-on types of things. Obviously, when you think about, collaborative learning, there's possibilities are endless for different types of.
can I ask a question?
I think Mr. Gave, the testing, Mr. I can't think of his name. But anyway, I know he presented this year, but the past 2 years before he presented this year, we had a real problem with our 8th grade. And I was wondering, you know, did we do any improvement on that?
Yes, sir.
Or what are we doing to improve it?
And I think the biggest issue there was math. I think that was 8th grade math was one of the largest concerns. In that, Ms. McCarthy, do you happen to remember what the growth they, you know, Litchtown Middle did see growth this year?
Not right off the top of my head. If I can find it real quick.
I know the previous 2 years, we had something like 10% efficiency or something like that.
We reached 25.2% this year.
Really? Well, that's good, Mr. Spencer. I'm happy about that because I had a problem with it being 10% 2 years in a row. That means we didn't improve any from 1 year to the next year. But I don't think you would have. Then I don't know. But Ms. McCarthy?
The 8th grade math from last year to this year, looking at just the 8th grade group, improved 24.3%. The group of students, like from their 7th grade score to their 8th grade score, tracking that same group of students, improved 22%.
Okay.
So there was significant growth in 8th grade math.
Okay.
I mean, do we feel like that's just a gain from COVID we're overcoming? Or?
Well, and in that situation, you had obviously that, then, you know, you had a long-term vacancy in math for some time that had been filled. And from time to time, you have that, but I mean, we're still dealing, and one of the challenges I think too is on COVID, that learning loss is going to carry us for quite some time. I mean, probably years, because you're still going, unless the state does any kind of renorming with standards and the assessments, they're still measuring you on pre-pandemic, you know, traditional instruction every day of the year. So basically that year and a half, or, you know, before we, you know, because we had a modified AB schedule for quite some time. You know, you're still a little behind the 8 ball. So trying to, and this is one of the things that, you know, going back to the accountability formula, one thing that causes a challenge, not just for Bladen County, everybody, is that 80-20, 80% proficiency, 20% growth. So this great growth that they got is only counting 20% of their entire school performance grade. So you're not seeing a lot of movement. And that performance grade is one of those things that's a part of that CSI process. So even though they had, you know, 20, 24, 25% growth, which is actually great for an academic year, because, you know, the goal is you want a full years of academic growth for every child. That's the target. But to be at that percentage is good, but it's not, you don't get much impact on that performance grade because it's only getting 20% weight. That's why we've tried to push for a 50-50, because then basically what you're looking at on the growth is what teachers have been able to do with students for a full academic year. And for some reason, our state only believes that's worth 20%. And we know there's a lot of factors that go into testing. I mean, you have kids that will give you straight A's on every assignment they do, but they take that end of grade test. They've got test anxiety or whatever. Some folks don't test well. Especially with the pressures of knowing that one test is going to carry so much weight. So, you know, you have that as one of those factors that, you know, we have students that, I mean, do great on academic work, but struggle to get a level 3 on this state test. You know, so there's a lot of things there to kind of factor into that. But
So Jason, what's the other 7?
about the standards.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got, all teachers are attentive to students' emotional states, guide students in managing their emotions, and arrange for supports and intervention.
That's a parent's job.
The school develops and implements consistent, intentional, ongoing plans to support student transitions from grade to grade and level to level. That's actually a new one for this year. That's part of 12. The LEA has an LEA support improvement team, which we do have there, so that wouldn't be on the school. Leadership team consisting of principal teachers who lead instructional teams, other professional staff meet regularly at least twice a month to review implementation of effective practices. That's a standard for our school improvement process. They do have 2 meetings per month to look at student data and performance. And that may be based off of teacher-made assessments or instant check-ins, interim, any kind of interim assessment, school net, whatever they may have already. Principal monitors curriculum and classroom instruction regularly, provides timely, clear, constructive feedback to teachers. LEA/school regularly looks at school performance data and aggregated classroom observation data and uses that data to make decisions about school improvement and professional development needs. They've developed a system of protocols for recruiting, evaluating, rewarding, and replacing staff. And then the school regularly communicates with parents and guardians about its expectations of them and the importance of the curriculum of the home, what parents can do at home to support their children's learning. That's the 12 key indicators that's required.
Do you mind, I'm sorry, forgive me. Do you mind repeating that very last one?
The school regularly communicates with parents/guardians about its expectations of them and the importance of the curriculum of the home, what parents can do at home to support their children's learning.
Yeah, that one ain't happening.
Just when you send it to me, yeah, please.
I'll share it all in.
Yeah, please, thank you so much. Mr. Spencer, I would like to thank you for whatever you guys have implemented to get this growth. I know it's not easy, but thank you so much for what you've done. Thank you so much for what you've done.
Thank you.
I want to say the same thing. I appreciate what you're doing, man. In your opinion, where was the biggest needs for improvement? What was the biggest thing you saw that needed to be improved?
When we got there, the biggest challenge was getting students on task.
Get into what, Mr. Spencer?
Getting students on task. And student engaged in the lesson.
So, Mr. Spencer, how many vacancies do you have? Vacancies?
But right now, we don't have it.
You don't have any? Okay.
Which is a big move in the right direction because they spent some time without positions. So that's definitely encouraging.
And our EC population is one of our biggest challenge, and that's never going anywhere. So, as we have
Say that again.
our EC population is one of our biggest challenge because it's not going anywhere. We have 309 students and 111 we have to give.
So are they all from your current district or are they from Alabama County?
Some are from there, some are still out of the district.
He sees a problem in Bladen County.
If
That's for sure.
if they are a resource or self-contained.
I appreciate what you're doing.
Any advice for us, Mr. Spencer? Ms. Godfrey? Any advice for us? I mean, you guys seem to have it on task, as you said, so you're on task, you're getting it done. And that's what we wanna, let's share the knowledge.
Just continue giving us the support that we need. Stop by, see what our students are doing. We're making great strides, so just stop by, see what we're doing, see where we're coming from, how we can, if there's anything that you see that we need to improve on, help us to improve on those.
We'll do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That being said, Chairman Benton and board members, I'm requesting approval of the Elizabeth Town Middle School Improvement Plan.
I think the first thing we have to do is remove it from the table. Don't have to get a motion to remove it from the table. Yeah. I'll entertain a motion, then we remove it from the table. We have to move the property seconded that we, remove it from the table. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All those Twice. Is none. Motion to remove it from the table. I make a motion to approve it. It's been moved and properly second that we approve the school improvement plan for Elizabethtown Middle. Is there any more discussion? If there is none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. There's no opposition, so 10.01, approval of school improvement plan for Elizabethtown Middle School passes. And then 10.02, fall custom policy updates.
Thank you, Chair Benton and board members. And last month, we did place the fall custom policy updates on the table to bring back for this month for approval. So we will need a for the board to remove those from the table first for consideration.
Entertain a motion to that effect. To remove it from the table.
Motion to remove, policy from table.
Second.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and properly seconded, that we remove from the table. Any discussion? There's none. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
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 All opposed likewise. There is none, motion carries, so 10.02 has been removed from the table. We can now proceed to vote with a motion and a second.
Why was it tabled?
Well, our policy requires, the updates policies unless we, set aside policy. They have to be, introduced at one board meeting for you all to additional time review, then brought back. So our policy requires that.
Okay, entertain a motion that we approve the fall custom policy updates.
Motion to approve the fall custom policy updates.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the fall custom policy updates. Any discussion? There's no discussion. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. No opposition, motion carries to approve the fall custom policy updates. Okay, at this time we move to number 11, closed session. So I'll entertain a motion at this time to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel as per NCGS 143.3 to consult with an attorney if needed, as per NCGS 143.3, and to discuss student reassignment and student discipline as per the 1974 Family Rights and Privacy Act. So moved.
Second.
Okay, moving properly second. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Likewise. If none, motion carries. We're now in closed session.
Shortly. And members online, okay.
Oh, can you give me something else to drink?
They were working on something.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we come out of closed session. Any discussion?
All right, we got two. No, you good, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got to get out of closed session.
I apologize.
Okay, we got a motion, second, we come out of closed session. Any discussion? If there is none, all those in favor of coming out of closed session, let be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like. There's none, we're now in open session again. Okay,
All right, apologize for
we'll
that.
go on to number 12.
All right, under personnel action items, I'm requesting the board to approve action item list A as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved properly second that we approve action item A as amended. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed. Is none, motion carries.
Chairman Bennett, board members, I request you approve action item B.
Motion to approve action item.
Second.
It's been moved properly second that we approve action item B. Any discussion? There is none. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise?
No,
Okay. This I tell motion carries. With some opposition, but as I could tell from the voice vote, motion carries. So action item B, did pass.
10, 6-2.
6-2.
The vote is 6-2.
6-2, okay. There's nothing else. Number 13, matters of interest to the board. The letter that we got in the email that was, talking about the health consent and all that, it had it had all of our names on it and yours as well. I understand that, that was letting everybody know this is what the law is with Parent Bill of Rights and everything. But I'm trying to figure out, because numerous parents have reached out to me. You sent another letter out that was signing for a school nurse to be able to do whatever, something like that, correct? There was another one that went out, what do you want your child's name to be? And then follow them down, then we've got to talk about pronouns now. So until there's a problem, why make it a problem?
Well, and I can share that, Mr. Locklear. We were required by the legislation to provide the consents. Now, and the reason why the second letter went out was to clarify, because some folks got confused because anything with Parent Bill of Rights forms, these are had to be disseminated by January 1. The only exception to that is the Parent's Guide to Student Achievement. And on that particular form about the pronoun preferred name, that would be nickname, or like if my name's John Thomas, I'll be called JT. The law requires any change to that legal name referred to by school system, whether it's an abbreviation name, have parental consent. Notice on that form, and that's what the second letter was to say, it's only use this form if you want to change. It was not, I think the confusion was, but the form doesn't have a no, I don't, because that would have to be coming from the parent anyway. So that's why I didn't have a no, because the only reason that form would ever be used would be that a parent says, well, my child's name is John Thomas, and I give my permission to refer to him as JT. So that's why that form doesn't have a no, and it's only to be, and that's what the second letter says, you only use this form in the event of this. So that, I think some of the confusion was, and it's not just us, everybody's getting that same thing. And we want to clarify the board or the school system is not endorsing, name change, pronoun. We're not saying that. We're just informing you of your rights under the law. And the legislation required us, there were several parts that had deadlines, the health consent, and that's the general health services. What I think some of the confusion is even on that is that, if there's an emergency need, nurses or other school personnel are covered by Good Samaritan law. So if a child is bleeding, in a first aid event, we can render that care and we're covered under the law. This is talking about general services, for example, like vision screening. A parent may say, I don't want the nurse to screen my child for vision. I would prefer that to take place with their physician. So, and that consent can be revoked at any time. Middle school year, they may start with it and say no. A little more record keeping on our part, but we want to follow the law in that. So the second letter really was to clarify that you only use this if. So that was that, and we sent out that very next day just to there's a lot of sensitivity in some of the subjects that are in there, and we all are aware of that. So we were trying to be, following the law, but also as a school system, not representing, as a public agency, we're not representing either side of that. We're just informing everyone, and we were required to do that. So that was the purpose of the second. And then, of course, we know obviously for schools, anything else can come up. And we also said there, if you have any questions, please contact us and we can clarify that even beyond the letter. I think that the alarming part was getting everything, and I understand that, but
the only alarming part I've heard from anybody is that Bladen County don't have a problem with what's going on. Why even mention pronouns?
All right. Well, we were required to give that notice and option to parents. It's again, the premise of it is the law says that you have to have that consent before any of that's changed, whether it's a pronoun or whether it is preferred name. And the disclosure said on official records, it follows the birth certificate. And so, on your diploma is what your birth certificate says. Even though you know, we've got children that they've had, in years past, if I was a classroom teacher in open house, parents said, oh, my son's John Thomas, you can call him JT. You make a note of it and there wouldn't be anything about it. But now it's just making sure that nothing happens with regards to a child's name or anything, that the parent themselves have not said, yes, you can make this change for my child. So that is the only reason why. That's why that form doesn't have a note. It just has, you only do this if you have a preferred name, a nickname that you want. And some children go by a middle name, or it might be a derivative of first and middle name. So it covers all of that. So we're not, you know, encouraging people to, you know, change a pronoun or change a name. It's just, you know, we fulfilled our legal obligation or statute to make that notice to them. You know, and there may be additional changes down. I just know the last part of that does not come until the beginning of next school year, and that's what's called the Parent's Guide to Student Achievement. And really, it encompasses a lot of things that we already have kind of in our parent handbook, but it's just got to be in that particular format. Because I think, Ms. Johnson, you can correct me, I think it's September, I had to sign an affidavit and a statement that says that Bladen County Schools has complied with the law and giving notice to parents of health consent, you know, ways to withhold or give consent. That's the purpose of the forms. We're required to give them notice of how parents request information under those particular areas in the statute. We're also required to, for those things like health. So say, for instance, an employee happens to refer to a child by their nickname, but the parent hadn't consented to it, and the parent, so that's called parental remedy. So that covers that. It covers the health concern. If there's something that the district has not done as far as, you know, those things in that particular statute, is a separate process.
So are coaches also having to put them out too? Because I mean, you know, coaches for all their players have got nicknames. I mean, if it's good for the whole school, aren't they? Right,
it governs. So it's a full-time consent. And so, and I know it's tough because we've already been through almost half of the school year, and now we've got all this stuff. You know, because that was part of the, you know, they did that, and you know, the guidance, and you had the budget, and there were some technical corrections in the budget to change some of the dates. Because really, in theory, the way the law read originally, we were, by the time the law was in place, we were already behind the 8 ball and things had not been done. So, you know, that's why they extended some of those things out to January 1. The other one goes out to August. There's 2 types of requests on the parent side outside of consent. So the first one is parents' request for information. That one has, you know, timeline. You know, that request has to be in writing to the principal. Principal has 10 days initially. They can ask for an extension up to 20 days to respond. Principal fails to respond, or the parent feels like their request was not filled based on those certain areas they can ask for. It's in the law.
Certain areas.
Yeah, I mean, there's a specific thing that process governs. So say that, then the parent has that right to appeal that to me. Then I have 10 days to either fulfill the request or provide a reasoning in writing why we cannot fill that request. If it's not something that falls there, or and sometimes you may have someone that may not be a legal guardian or parent requesting information. Obviously, you can't do that because of FERPA. And if I say no or don't, if I don't fulfill their request within the necessary time, which I don't see myself doing that because they're entitled to it, I'm gonna do everything I can to give it to them. But if not, then they have a right to appeal to the board. And then that particular process stops with you all. You as a board, you have a hearing based on that, and then you all determine, yes, the parent's entitled to this information, or no, they're not, or no, this request is denied based on, so the board, and then that decision's final. It doesn't go anywhere. Whereas on the other process, the timeline is shortened. So those are the ones that deal with health consent. The name approval of a name change, what's the title, whether that be nickname, preferred name, whatever. I think there's one also about, you know, there's a law, in that law, there's to be no education on gender identity, whatever, through K-3. Bladen County Schools, we're not doing it K-12. So, you know, they can grieve, that could be a part of that process if they feel like that had been done. So that's the parental remedies. That one gets a little more, gets deeper. That's the one the state board also has a policy. So what happens in this case, the initial timeline is just 7 days. And then what happens there is I actually work with the principal if they're unable to, so we work with that. So when it goes past me at that point, it comes to you all, you render a decision. However, in this one, the parent can appeal the local board's decision to the state board. So that's the change, that's the difference in those two. So we had to give notice of all those processes, and I know it was a lot. Ideally, in the perfect world, that would have been a part of a beginning of the school set of information. And when you're dealing with those various topics, it can be confusing. And then, of course, you know, individuals have their own personal convictions, religious, whatever that may be, about those things. And anytime you have sensitive matters, it can cause confusion. That's why we quickly said, no, let's get a letter out and say, look, don't you ignore it unless you want to do this. Ignore this form altogether. It says, I mean, we put only big capital letters. Otherwise, you just know that it's available, you know, if as a parent you want to exercise. So basically what the essence of the law does is nothing will change with a child as far as their health or those things unless that parent says, yes, I consent to this happening. And a parent at any time can withdraw that consent. You know, you had in times past, you know, we've always, I think as a district, we've always wanted to lean toward the parents, but I don't think that was happening everywhere in the state. Some things were being changed. I think that's where the premise of the law is that maybe parents didn't know, or that those things might have happened at the, you know, because sometimes you have conflicting interpretations because sometimes you go to a symposium or get an update that says, well, if this request is made, you have to honor it. Well, what North Carolina say, no, you can do that, but with the parents got to consent to it. So, and our answer here, if a parent, and now this wouldn't apply to this because you got to either do it or you don't do it. But in anything else that we have that requires parental consent, if a parent doesn't fill out the form at all, so help consent, the default is no, because we do not have in writing where the parent has said yes. So the default is no. Now, obviously, our responsibility is if we don't get that back is to follow up with parent. You know, we didn't get your health consent form. We just want to make sure that. So that's on the you know, schools to do that. But I hope that answered your question. Kind of, I know it's a lot, but it's just a lot of the parts that's going on at one time.
And I think the last thing I would have to ask is with the health consent form, they obviously have to get consent. And you said earlier, if I'm wrong, tell me that it's until they rescind it.
Well, it's got to be done on an annual basis. So at the end of the school year, it would reset. Everyone's got, then it becomes a part of our beginning of the year packet.
So can a parent come in at any time and say, you know what?
Right.
I don't want to.
They can withdraw their consent at any time. Okay. So that, again, it's making sure that parents' rights are protected over their children. So, you know, that emancipation age of 18, that's even what was purpose. And sometimes you get seniors in that last month or two had turned 18. That's what the federal law is. But this governs all of K-12. So, again, it's just making sure that parents' rights are protected. And a lot of things districts are already doing anyway, but it's just to make sure that, you know, the processes, that's why they were so detailed. I mean, this had so many different requirements. It wasn't like, you know, you get a piece of legislation and say, by this date, you'll do X. And so one thing I failed to mention, I need to share with you all, as a part of the affidavit process, I'm required to report to the state board how many parental requests for information made it to the board level for an appeal. And then how many of those on the remedies side made it to the board for an appeal and then went to the state board for an appeal. So we'll have to, so what's happening is my office, Ms. Johnson and we've already got folders for every school for all these different areas. Now the schools will keep the consents on file at the school level. But any of those parent requests for information, even though they file that because it's got to go to the principal, and this is, you know, sometimes in legislation it says principal designee, superintendent designee, but in this law it says principal, period. So the principal has to guide it. This principal can't do it. The principal's got to do it. Just like in this case for this, you know, when it names me, I have to do that. And so we've done that so that we make sure when they have that come, they're required to send a copy to us with a resolution attached. So I want the request and the resolution, or, a statement as to why it cannot be provided within the law. So when that comes to me, so we try, even if it gets to appeal, that single document, we've got a cover sheet that says that this happened this date. This was approved, denied at this date, went to the next level, reviewed, received this date. So we make sure we're following the law and the timeframes. And when it comes to if it comes to a board appeal, then once the board makes the decision noted in the board chair signs the form. And so, we're making sure that we got all the record keeping, because when I sign an affidavit that's got me bound, I'm not going to give false information. I never would do that. So I want to make sure that we're being accurate. So there's not a system that collects this. We're having to do our own system. And so, all those have to come. We keep them on, even if it's resolved at school level, we've got a copy of it on file. So if they ever asked us, they might change that reporting next year and say, we don't want just what went to the board, how many went to the superintendent and they ended there, how many went just to the school level. I expect that to probably happen because they're going to want data on the implementation, but as of right now, they just want data on where the board stands in terms of those two requests.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any more matters of interest to the board? We move on to 14, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chairman Benton and board members. Just a couple of quick things, and apparently it looks like accidentally the chair's report was left off, but I guess. All right, first I want to give Mr. Grady an opportunity. I didn't know that, I just noticed that there. It's time for a break. Update on Bladen Community College and the Booker T. Washington building. Mr. Grady has been doing some research on the possibility of that as an option for the board. Mr. Grady, would you like to share
very briefly
what you found?
Basically, as the board knows, I was going to contact the School of Government, which I did, and we've emailed back and forth with each other. And we are satisfied that the board, if they choose to do it, if that's what they want to do, could convey the property to a community college because it would be a conveyance to a nonprofit for school purposes. And community college is considered a public school. There would have to be a clause in the deed that in the event the property was no longer used for school purposes, it would revert back to the board. That's totally up to the board. They have, and I think that that will go back to whatever you want to do with it next.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I think Dr. Lee had to speak with, because they would have to, as a board of trustees, would have to make that to the board of education. So, I don't know. I'm not sure when they meet, and it might be in January. But once we hear the request, because the board of trustees will have to approve on behalf of the college, then my thoughts were we bring that to the board if they want to pursue that. If this is an option the board would like to do, and the board can vote at that time to convey that at that time. So depending on when we get any information from the board of trustees, we would bring that to you all.
I left one important thing out there. They could convey it with little or no consideration or for whatever the board wanted to, up to fair market value, but you could convey it for no consideration.
And that clause protects the board if they vacated the building, and that would be,
like I said, it's no longer used for school purposes, it would work back.
So then they would be responsible if they conveyed it to them. All the maintenance for the building, everything would be on the college if it's deeded to them. But depending on when we get a response from the board of trustees, we'll either have it on our January meeting or February. I'm not sure when they meet again, but that'd be something we could bring back to the board to consider. All right. Quickly, I've already shared this in the update with Mr. Lockwood's question about the Parents' Bill of Rights. I only got one more piece that's beginning next year. As a reminder, Plainview and Tar Heel are on remote learning this week and also January the 2nd. there will be an open house for parents and the community. This is a kind of an informal open house from 12 to 6 on January 2nd. I will email that to you all so you can go by there. We do plan to do the big grand opening, ribbon cutting and all, once everything on the property is turnkey, the current building is demolished, parking lots are ready, it will be the official campus. So we're still got modified entrances and things that'll have to work. And that was the biggest thing for wanting to do it then too, so that parents know if I'm dropping off my kid, this is how I've got to enter now. We're gonna have some signs and things made on that, so that we can assist them with that. So and Mr. Burris shared about folks getting things in the booth now, so that's been good. High school exams are taking place right now. They're releasing at 1:30 Monday through Thursday, and then all schools will release at 12:30 on Friday. That will be the final day that schools and departments will be open. In fact, everything will close at 1 o'clock on Friday, December 15th, and the offices will remain closed through Monday, January the 1st.
Even here too.
Yeah, even here, yeah. So we'll resume normal hours on Tuesday, January the 2nd. And our next board meeting will be Monday, January the 8th. So with that said, board members, there's a little gift for you all in that little bag there. Hopefully you can use that between now and the holidays for something. And with that being said, we hope that you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and may God bless each and every one of you. And we appreciate you all for what you do. And we're looking forward to coming back in January and a new year with a great anticipation as we complete the school year.
Thank you, sir.
Reaction on that, and at this time, we'll entertain a motion.
I got one question. Jason, what's the update on the abatement for the H-Star kids? Did those students get back to?
They'll be coming back, Mr. Lennon, January, right? Yeah, so with final inspection, so we should be in there when they return back to Christmas. That's been the abatement of the HVAC unit, ceiling grid, all the stuff that had to be done for the, the painting and everything.
So is it done, or is we're still working on it?
How much?
Working on that here.
It's the last page.
It's all of it. Now, the grid is already out. Once the air does and everything, we put back in there. Everything.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we'll send a notice home to those families before they leave, or with those students, those families. We'll get that out to them. We're trying to build on top of those. Again, you have some that have older students and some. Make sure that parents have that, in return and getting great stuff.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Is there any discussion on the motion to adjourn? If not, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.